One morning, Gregor Samsa woke from uneasy dreams to find himself transformed into a monstrous insect. That's how Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis begins. Suddenly, violently, a man becomes something grotesque, and just like that, his value disappears. His family recoils, his employer abandons him. The world, once full of familiar structure and human connection, now treats him as something less than human, simply because he no longer looks human. We'll return to Gregor Samsa and Kafka's Metamorphosis, but first, here's the real question. What changed? His body or our ability to see his worth? Why do we instinctively assign value based on appearance? Even when appearance has nothing to do with substance, even when what's been deemed as beautiful has changed over thousands of years. From the moment we open our eyes, we are primed to react to beauty. But it isn't just that we judge people based on what they look. We often don't even realize we're doing it. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, provides an evolutionary lens which we can understand this phenomenon. The book outlines the major revolutions that shaped our species: cognitive, agricultural, scientific, and capitalist, and it shows how our perception of beauty, status, and value has never been fixed. It's a moving target, changing with the needs and myths of each era. But let's rewind the tape to 70,000 years ago. During the cognitive revolution, when we were just a bunch of dumb apes, the Homo sapiens developed the unique ability to imagine things that didn't exist, like gods, nations, and social norms. It was here where Harari argues that beauty became one of our earliest collective fictions. Body shapes or postures were preferred, not just for evolutionary reasons like fertility or health, but because once a group agreed on what was attractive, that attractiveness became a marker of belonging, of status, and trust. Beauty wasn't just vanity, it was a code, a social sign that said, I fit in, you can trust me, I am desirable, not just physically, but socially. Fast forward to the agricultural revolutions, humans begin to settle and society starts organizing itself into hierarchies. Property, class, and gender roles become more rigid. In this world, beauty is no longer just about survival. It becomes institutionalized. A beautiful daughter might secure a better marriage. A physically impressive ruler is seen as more divinely favored. The body becomes a tool for power. And then comes the modern age, the age of science, industry, and capital. Harari observes that capitalism functions by creating desire. You are told to want more things, more status, more beauty, not because you need it, but because economies depend on your longing. In this context, beauty is no longer just admired. It's sold, it's packaged, and commodified. It's turned into something you can buy in a bottle or wear on your skin. But the thing is, our brains haven't really caught up. Despite living in skyscrapers and building smartphones, the human brain is still running on ancient firmware. A lot of that wiring is built around something evolutionary psychologists call the baby schema, a set of traits that trigger caregiving and empathy. Large eyes, small nose, a rounded face, smooth skin. Those are traits that we associate with infants, and by extension, with vulnerability and innocence. Researchers like Konrad Lorenz, who coined the term, found that these features triggered the release of dopamine and oxytocin, the brain's feel-good chemical, making us more likely to approach, nurture, and protect whatever displays them. This is why we find puppies adorable, why animation studios exaggerate eyes and soften facial features, why we instinctively recoil from faces that lack symmetry or appear deformed. Even if someone is kind, intelligent, or generous, if their appearance falls outside these subconscious, safe parameters, our brain reacts before we have time to think. So, when Gregor Samsa wakes up as an insect, it doesn't matter that he still thinks like Gregor, or that he wants to help his family, or that he listens at the door with quiet sorrow. His family doesn't see him, they see a threat, something other, something that doesn't trigger that care response. His appearance rewires their empathy. Neurologically, we do this all the time. Studies using fMRI scans show that the human brain has different activation patterns depending on whether we perceive someone as beautiful or not. When we see conventionally attractive faces, our brains light up in the same reward centers activated by food, money, or sex. But when we see something unfamiliar or ugly, especially if it deviates too far from the average, we activate areas linked to fear and disgust. It's not conscious. It's primal. And that's why Gregor's tragedy hits so deeply. Not just because his life collapses, but because it reveals a brutal truth. Our love is fragile, our empathy conditional. It hinges far more than we like to admit on appearances. But If beauty is just a story that we've been telling ourselves for thousands of years, a story that changes with every revolution, what does that say about us? Harari illustrates this beautifully with an example from history: the contrast between Louis, the King of France, and Barack Obama, the former president of the United States. Louis ruled through opulence. He was the state, decked in jewels, wrapped in gold, the Sun King whose very image screamed divine authority. Obama, by contrast, represents a different kind of power: understated, modest, trustworthy, a modern masculinity that finds strength in calm rationality and quiet confidence. They couldn't be more different, yet both were seen in their time as the pinnacle of status, attractiveness, and leadership. The shift from the powdered wigs and embroidered robes to the tailored suits and unshakable composure of the Oval Office shows just how fluid our ideals really are. We like to think beauty and status are objective, but they're reflections of cultural value, reflections of what we want, believe about power, safety, or success. So again, why can we help but recoil from poor Gregor Samsa? Because no matter how advanced we become, no matter how much we know that worth isn't skin deep, our emotional circuitry was built for simpler times. Times when recognizing deformity might have meant avoiding diseases, when beauty meant safety, fertility, health. Now, that same instinct can be cruel, unjust, dehumanizing. And perhaps that's Kafka's warning that our humanity is far more fragile than we think, that the thin layer of civility we wear is quickly stripped away when someone no longer fits the mold of what we consider normal. Gregor never stops being himself, but to the people around him, he stops being human. So maybe the real metamorphosis isn't Gregor. The moment he changes, we change too. We reveal the quiet brutality of our instincts, the conditions which we place on compassion, and the way we tether value to surfaces. And in doing so, Kafka holds up a mirror, not to Gregor Samsa, but to us. The insect isn't the monster. The monster is how quickly we forget someone's humanity if their appearance doesn't comfort us. Yet, Kafka doesn't moralize this shift, he observes it, almost clinically. His horror is not in the grotesque body, but in the indifference it provokes. The family's revulsion isn't just disgust, it's abandonment. Gregor becomes inconvenient. Aesthetic ugliness becomes social exile, which mirrors today's landscape very much. In other works like The Trial or The Hunger Artist, Kafka continues this theme. His protagonists are often described in vague, unremarkable terms, almost physically invisible, while their worth is constantly interrogated by impersonal systems. The body is either monstrous or irrelevant, and in both cases, it is a site of judgment. Beauty, if it appears at all, is a mask for power, cold, distant, and fragile. Kafka's world is one in which appearances are traps, misleading, arbitrary, and easily weaponized. Kafka uses ugliness not to shock, but to expose. He reveals how quick we are to treat the unfamiliar as unworthy. His writing asks, if dignity is tied to appearance, what happens when the surface cracks? Who do we stop seeing as human, and why?